to Kenya, where police have used tear gas to disperse protesters in Nairobi as part of ongoing nationwide demonstrations. Protests are ongoing despite Kenyan President William Ruto's withdrawal of the controversial finance bill and dismissing his cabinet. Anti-government protesters in the city pleaded for their voices to be heard. Mr. Ruto last Thursday dismissed almost all of his cabinet ministers and promised to form a new government that would be lean and efficient following weeks of protest over high taxes and poor governance. Kenya has seen 3 weeks of unrest in which protesters stormed into parliament on June 25 after a finance bill was passed that proposed tax increases. Over 30 people have died in the protests, which have morphed into calls for the president to resign.
I just want my voice to be heard, and I just want the president to know that we don't want what he's doing. Like, the economy is just bad, and we don't like it.
This is our land. We are dying here. We get justice or we die here. And the irreversible minimum is either the president abide by what the people are telling him. We gave him that power. It is time for him to abide by what we are telling him. Or we demand IMF to come and carry their own puppet.
Well, for the very latest, let's cross over to Kenya now and speak with the global risk analyst, Chris Otieno, who joins me on the line from Nairobi. Chris, good to see you and thanks for your time. Perhaps let's start by asking the question, what exactly do they want? It would seem as if we have a willing president who's acceded to almost all their major demands. What else do the young people of Kenya want?
First of all, allow me to say thank you very much for having me, and I'm glad to join this channel right now. The young person set quite a number of demands that has led to them going into the streets. And first was the dropping of the 2024 finance bill. That had quite a number of measures that included high taxation, that was purportedly to increase our cost of living to some very high standards. Outside of that, we've seen other things happening in the country. There's been abductions. There have been extrajudicial killing. There has been disappearances of protesters. And this has angered the protesters much more. And you see them continually holding their resilience and going back to the streets and demanding more and more and more, despite the president having done so much, engaged the Gen Zs on X space, dissolved this cabinet, offered a national talk with the opposition to find solutions to what is being floated. But we still see none of this is important. Is stopping what we had seen from the word go. So basically, we are saying the other interests that have not been met, the other areas that are diverting from the original thought that we need to have as a country. Thanks.
So Chris, you know, the fear here or the worry by most Africans would be, do you think that this is not beyond the young people of Kenya? Are you thinking that there seem to be some kind of political push behind those demands by young people of Kenya?
You are very right in your question, and definitely there must be a lot of pushes from very many quarters. We have read on print media where the Gen Zs are getting their financial support from. We have seen political involvement from politicians of different parties getting involved. And you can now see that this one has now changed traction. They are no longer demanding reforms and changes from the central government. They're also going to demand reforms of the excellencies of the county governments, heads of the county governments. And these demands are basically falling on the development of trade, opening up of trade, for young people to get involved in the drivers of economy of our nation. There's a demand in proper leadership because we are seeing a lot of unethical behavior amongst our leaders. You're seeing a lot of opulence that totally going against the seed and what we demand as a nation. That there must be equitable distribution of the national wealth, and that must be distributed to enhance growth economically so that every citizen of this nation gets the right of what they deserve as enshrined in the Constitution. So yes, There are pushes from all quarters, but we cannot say that this is above Gen Z. We just say that Gen Z could be used as a will to attain certain objectives. And you're very right by saying probably political objectives are now being forwarded or pushed forward using this Generation Z, who have really created a very good approach to how they want their demands met.
Has there been any kind of comment, from political quarters, especially from other political leaders? We've seen how tense it's always been after every election in Kenya. Leaders like Raila Odinga, leaders like the former president, has any of them spoken to the youth on this?
Both the ex-leaders, former leaders, have spoken. Just the other day, we saw Honorable Raila Odinga speaking to the youths. He tried to join this national conversation called by the president. He had a big backlash from the Gen Zs who told him, you step aside, keep off this one. We want one of these our way. Your time has expired. We had statements from the former president, Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, who told the Gen Zs, take this slow. He had the government also listen to them. The deputy president, current serving deputy president, also had divergent views from what is happening. Went out to call on public, the Gen Zs, to calm down, going as far as calling them his sons and daughters. We are seeing a lot of effort from all quarters trying to push down this civil strife and these demonstrations in my country. We've also seen the church coming up, church leadership coming up and trying to also front other views that could diffuse all this and bring it down. Business community have also gone out saying, guys, this is disrupting our economic activities and that is lowering us in terms of bringing down our abilities to participate in the economy of the country. So many other quarters. Everybody is just trying to voice their voice in all this that is happening in the country of Kenya.
Well, Chris, from what you're observing, does it also worry you that this just might be something that should concern every other African leader, because we've seen that what happens in one region of the continent may have a ripple effect on how governance is seen on other parts of the continent?
You're totally right. Yes, what is happening in my country now could have very many ripple effects in many other countries. So I know leaders across the globe, across African continent, are looking at Kenya very closely. They're having an intelligence community gather as much information as they can with what is happening in Kenya. And probably most of them have now started deploying mitigating strategies to ensure that whatever is happening here in Kenya does not happen in the country. We saw what happened in Arab Springs and how that spread through Arab countries and the eventual effect. And so you are very right by saying, yes, this could propagate quite a number of ripple effects in very many African countries. And that could also go as far as advocating for regime change. And who knows, some other countries could achieve that regime change by following the footsteps of what is happening here in my country, Kenya. So yes, you are very right.
Lastly, before I let you go here, how would you rate the handling of the protesters by the authorities, specifically the military and the police?
I want to say that there has been quite a number of wrong tactics that have been deployed to handle this strife. Police have used excessive force in some quarters. There's been loss of lives, and there are different figures coming in, others saying 24, others saying 41, and the number of injuries going up to 361 citizens who were out picketing, which is enshrining their constitution. And we can basically say, yes, the effect is pretty high. And they've not been handling well at all. The other time we saw the military being deployed in the streets. And if our code of conduct in our military says that they can only be deployed in the streets under parliamentary approval. We saw them go to the street before parliament approved. Later on, a parliament was convened very fast, and without even giving us scope, giving the length, duration which they'll be out there. They've been telling us how they will operate. They already were in the streets. Very wrong deployment of the military. And also, police have not done their job to what we would refer to as expectation. We still see these demonstrations going on. Police have not been able to identify the sources, the persons who are leading these, and the Gen Zs are very organized. They are leaderless, but they are effective, and they are doing what they ought to do. We see them on a daily basis come up with different strategies. occupy parliament, occupy state house, occupy Nairobi, occupy governors' offices, and more demands. So we are saying that those behind this are very strategic, but the security authorities, they have not been able to nip this bud at the top and be able to really calm it down and bring bring peace in our streets.
Chris Otieno, I'd like to thank you for your time. Asante.